In 2014, we had an opportunity to visit Singapore. Here are the highlights of the trip. Once we arrived in Changi Airport, we immediately noticed that there were lots of green vegetation in the terminal. It's very rare and definitely a welcome, refreshing sight. We were pretty lucky that we got a room with a nice window view, as you can see here. There's the Singapore flyer right in front. And then to the bottom, to the right, you can barely see the cloud forest lit up at night. Both attractions we'll be checking out later on the trip. Here's a quick view of the bathroom. Just to let you guys know, they also had a rainfall shower head in the shower, so that was pretty nice. The room itself is very spacious with ceiling to floor windows providing panoramic views of Marina Bay and the Marina Reservoir. The beds themselves, there were two double beds. Both the mattress and the pillows were very comfortable and we didn't have any problems falling asleep at night. For our first full meal in Singapore, we went to Din Tai Fung, and instead of ordering the typical xiaolong bao, we went with the beef noodle soup with beef briskets. The soup itself was nicely seasoned with enough spiciness in there, and the beef brisket was cooked just tender enough for you to be able to enjoy the beef along with the noodle in a very balanced manner. As with all our visits to Din Tai Fung, we always want to check out the hot and sour soup, so here is the obligatory hot and sour soup. As always, they maintain the high quality and consistent spiciness along with the sourness. So that, again, Din Tai Fung knocked it out of the park with the hot and sour soup. So here we are at the Marina Bay Sands, one of the largest integrated casino resort areas in the world. You got obviously the hotel, you got what's billed as the world's largest atrium casino, as well many high-end shops at the Shops Mall, a museum, two theaters, and topped off with an infinity swimming pool on top of the hotel. Once we're inside the Marina Bay Sands Hotel, you get the feeling that you're inside an atrium, if you will. Very spacious, airy, lots of natural sunlight coming through the windows. A very well designed, very well architected building. One of the key attractions of the Marina Bay Sands is the Sky Park observation deck, which is right at the top of the hotel. Provides a bird's eye view vantage point of this part of Singapore, the Marina Bay, and you can see part of Gardens by the Bay as well. Here's a better view of the Gardens by the Bay where you can see the flower dome, the cloud forest dome, the super tree groves, and the various gardens that comprises Gardens by the Bay. From the observation deck, you also get to see the Singapore Flyer that should be to the left of the Marina Bay Sands. On the other side of the observation deck, you get to see the Marina Reservoir, and there are several key attractions that I want to highlight here. The Clifford Building, right along the Clifford Pier, I believe. The Merlion, which you can barely see right in the middle. Then to the right, you have the Esplanade Theater, and once we pan to the right, you also see the float, which is supposedly the largest floating stage. The Flower Petal Building, which is right next to the Marina Bay Sands Hotel, is the Art Science Museum. After the Marina Bay Sands, we headed off to the Super Tree Grove in the Gardens of the Bay. And there's not much to say about the super trees except that they're tall metal structures that have some LED lights that light up during the nighttime, but since it was daytime, we didn't get to see that. We spent some time in the gardens walking around checking out the various exhibits as shown here. Afterwards, we then headed off to the Cloud Forest Dome. The Cloud Forest Dome showcases plants and flowers from tropical highlands up to certain elevation, I believe 2,000 meters above sea level. In my opinion, the two key attractions are the 35-meter high artificial mountain, as well as the world's tallest indoor waterfall, which we'll see a little bit later. So starting at the base of this artificial mountain, we get to see this nice little pond with various aquatic plant and flowers with two boats there, I believe, to the left, and some more of the aquatic plants. And of course, once we started slowly setting up, we start seeing different plant and flower life. As you slowly ascend the artificial mountain, you get the sense that it feels very much like an amusement park, but in actuality, this whole setup is all real. It's real plants, real flowers. It's very impressive. Inside the artificial mountain, they actually have a museum exhibit called the Crystal Mountain Cave. They have a lot of exhibits that talk about the various things you can find in caves and caverns, such as stalactites, stalagmites, and various other science exhibits that cover a lot of the science and geology of caves and caverns. And now the main attraction, that awesome waterfall, one of the, if not the highest indoor waterfall to be ever built by anybody. On the second day that we're in Singapore, we checked out the Fountain of Wealth. It's located in one of the largest shopping malls, in fact. It's called Suntec City. The Fountain of Wealth is actually located in the middle, the center of the mall, so you can't really miss it. And during certain times of the day, they will shut off the main fountain, and so that people can actually walk into the fountain, into the center of the fountain, which has a mini fountain where you can throw in coins for good luck. As of 1998, it was considered the largest fountain in the world. And here, presenting the star of the day 2 attractions, is the Merlion. Its name combines mer, meaning the sea, and lion. And the fish body represents Singapore's origin as a fishing village when it was originally called Temasek, which means sea town in the Javanese language. And the lion head, it represents Singapore's original name, Singapura, meaning Lion City or Kota Singa. So the Merlion that you're seeing is actually the smaller of the two. I think that it's called the Merlion cub, the actual Merlion, the big one. That's behind it, which you'll see in other pictures later on. And in the background, there's the Singapore Flyer and the Art Science Museum, and of course to the right, you also see the Mandalay Bay Sands, the 3 towers of Mandalay Bay Sands. And this whole complex, this whole area is called the downtown core for Singapore, and it's really the center of Singapore in terms of commerce as well as government buildings. There's a lot of government buildings around here, so we spent a lot of time just checking out the various historical buildings in and around the downtown core. After lunch, we then headed out to the Singapore Flyer. It's described as an observation wheel, but bottom line is, it's a giant Ferris wheel. It is probably the largest, if not one of the largest, tallest Ferris wheels in the world. And it can accommodate about 28 passengers per capsule. Each capsule is air conditioned, and there's 28 of those capsules. As you can see to the right, we have the Cloud Forest Dome, as well as the Flower Dome and the Super Tree Groves to the right. And that's Marina Bay right in front of us there. Here's the view from the other side of the Singapore Flyer capsule during the initial ascent. The dome that you see is the National Singapore Stadium. It has a retractable roof. For those sci-fi buffs out there, it kind of reminds me of the old Battlestar Galactica Cylon Raiders. With this particular bird's eye view now, you get to see all the various parts of Garden by the Bay. It's a natural park that spans about 250 acres of reclaimed land, and it's comprised of 3 major waterfront gardens: the Bay South, Bay East, and Bay Central, the largest of which is the Bay South Garden at 130 acres. And then as you pan over, you now get to see lots of ships that are anchored offshore. The reason why you see a lot of ships that are anchored offshore is because the Port of Singapore is currently the world's 2nd busiest port in terms of shipping tonnage. And it transships about 1/5 of the world's shipping containers, half of the world's annual supply of crude oil, and is the world's busiest transshipment port. So, needless to say, there's a lot of ships hanging around Singapore. Now that the Singapore flyer has reached its apex height, we now get to see a very familiar panoramic viewscape on the other side of the Marina Bay, such as the Marina Bay Sands Hotel and Convention Center, as well as the Art Science Museum and the various skyscrapers that are along the Marina Reservoir, such as the Fullerton Hotel and the Merlion, as well as the floats. And here we get a zoom in of the Esplanade, as well as the Mandarin Oriental. And here's a much closer view of the Fullerton Hotel and the Merlion. This is a nice view of the Pan Pacific Hotel that we were staying at for the trip. As the Singapore Flyer completes its full rotation and you are about to complete the Singapore Flyer ride, here are some of the last city views before you finish. On our last day in Singapore, day 3, we went and visited the famous Singapore Botanic Gardens, specifically focusing on the Orchid Garden. It has up to 60,000 orchids, I believe, comprising of 1,000 species and more than 2,000 hybrids, and covers up to around 7.5 acres of landscape slopes. And it's divided into 4 color zones, starting with the spring zone that has flowers of shades of gold, yellow, cream, summer zone with major tones of reds and pinks, autumn zone of mature shades, and then winter zone of whites and blues. And here we are posing in front of a very floral themed water fountain. I believe that was at the beginning of the trail. As we walked through the orchid garden, we were just constantly amazed and awed by the sheer number of orchids and the kaleidoscope rainbow colors that were displayed, and the various shapes of the orchids too. It's just amazing how varied and how diverse the orchids were. Here's PB posing in front of a cluster of orchids. This particular orchid is special because it was named in honor of Princess Asako of Japan to commemorate her royal wedding with Prince Naruhito in 1993. It's a hybrid comprised of Dendrobium singa-snow with Dendrobium subang, and another name for it is Asako Kotashi Hidenka. A particular part of the orchid garden that was very unique is the fragrant garden. Here, the orchids actually emit very pleasant, very sweet smelling smells and fragrances. Unfortunately, we don't have smell-o-vision, so you can't smell it, but as you can see, still very pretty, still very vibrant colors from the orchids. After a very enjoyable walkthrough of the orchid garden, we then checked out the gift shop. I do want to point out that one particular gift they have, one unique gift that they have, is the gold electroplated orchids, as you can see here. And if you got enough cash, here you can buy an entire stem of orchids that has been electroplated with 24 karat gold, done by the whole process and technique is owned by RISIS, R-I-S-I-S, but very impressive display and probably the highlight of the gift shop. For us, the highlights of the Singapore trip were the observation deck on top of the Marina Bay Sands Hotel and the Singapore Flyer. Both attractions provide you with almost 360 panoramic views of Marina Bay and downtown Singapore. If you get a chance, please check them out. They are definitely worth visiting. And then the Cloud Forest Dome with its artificial waterfall. And last but not least, the Orchid Garden with the sheer variety and diversity of colors and smells coming from the orchids. Unfortunately, we're not able to explore much more other attractions in Singapore, but perhaps we shall visit Singapore later in the future. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like or subscribe to our channel to check out our other videos.